All right. I'll give it just a couple seconds and I'll check here on my end, make sure that everything's going well. Oh, there it goes again. That's the last one. For those of you guys that are joining now, it's the tornado training every Wednesday at 12 p.m. We just make sure everything's going well. But we'll get it going, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me today. Obviously, welcome everybody to another episode of the Pre-Sales Unplugged, the Leadership Playbook. My name's Arvi. I'm the founder of Elite Talent, and we help SaaS companies hire pre-sales and post-sales talent. But today is not so much about me. Today is really about spotlighting, somebody that's behind the roles, that's a leader shaping the go-to-market teams. And obviously, he's going to share with us some lessons along the way, what's gone well, what's gone not so well. And then the goal, obviously, is to just learn a little bit more. And then meanwhile, we will check for questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. And then obviously, I'll make sure to ask Chris so we don't miss him. But thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today. I've obviously seen you around, especially on LinkedIn. You're very well known in the pre-sales community. You do a lot of in-person events as well, whether you're joining somebody else's or or doing your own. So thank you again for taking the time. I'm really excited to do this with you today. And I'd love for you to just give us a quick 30-second background on yourself and, your achievements so far.
Thank you very much for the kind intro. Arvi, appreciate being on your show. 30 seconds is long enough to talk about just maybe one failure, but I started as a network engineer. So I actually started as like a very technical person. And I found myself in a basement with no windows doing technical work back in the telecom days.
Oh, wow.
And I remember meeting up with a mentor of mine, and I was telling him, man, I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this work. Like I like the solving problems part of it, but
yeah.
And he's like, I think I have a thing for you. And I went through the ranks of implementation, got into solution engineering. The first time I remember specifically one sales call I heard that really, really excited me. And I went over there and I was like, whatever you did, I want to learn how to do it. And that just kicked off my role in my career in solutions. Fast forward, I started to run teams, lead teams, solving sort of organizational problems, got involved in pre-sales collective, started to run pre-sales collective, and now I'm the vice president of solutions and partnerships at Reprise.
Love that. So, I mean, obviously, it's not news in the way that a lot of people just kind of fall into sales engineering, at least up to
Sure.
this point. Nobody just kind of grows up wanting to be that. And typically, it's, kind of like you said, it just happens that somebody was already in the space and they kind of bring you along for the ride and you end up liking it. And then you kind of go into that.
Yeah.
So you said you love the sales part of it, and you were technical before, right? I've
Yeah.
seen that a lot more times. It will be people that are technical, but they want a little bit of nuance into their day-to-day, kind of like you said, you had no windows in a basement, which sounds horrible, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you had to do that. So tell me a little bit about on the sales side. Like, obviously you were technical, you kind of switched to sales. Was that hard for you to learn, to start implementing, or kind of what was your progress there in terms of, going from fully technical to balancing both now?
That's a good question. You know what I realized, Arvi, is that sales was a process. And I did not know that there was a process behind the madness. So I thought that my impression of sales was very much like everybody else's impression of sales. But what I realized is there's actually this process at which you take somebody through to discover, qualify, solve problems, circle back, overcome objections, clear and validate those objections. If you didn't validate it, do it again and do it again, and then solve their problem using technology, bringing value to them. And when I started to pick apart that process, I was like hooked, because I really love nerding out on like organizational processes. This is one of the things that I'm doing a lot of today.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that there was actually like there was like method. There was like a method behind it.
Hmm.
I really started to dig into that method, and I wanted to be more confident. I think behind the scenes, it was for me. It was like, man, if I could learn how to do that well and use my technical skills to solve people's problems, I think it's actually going to help me in life, well
Yeah.
beyond sales, or well beyond my career. I think that like I'll just exist in the world in a much better way. And I actually I don't think a lot of people talk about that, but it's like my skill development within solutions consulting actually helped me outside of work in
Yeah.
all kinds of areas. And I love that. So when I saw that potential, and I saw the potential life change, and I saw the potential monetary change in my life too, I was like, yeah, let's go.
I love that. I really, really love that you said that sales is a process.
Yeah.
I'll say personally, I always grew up thinking that or just looking at other people really thinking that sales is an art. Like you can't really process it out. It's just like based off feels and just, oh, if you're naturally born, we hear that a lot in the sales world. But just kind of like you, when I was just in recruiting overall, I heard somebody say, sales is not an art, it's a science. And that makes a lot of sense because it's kind of like what you said, it's a process, it's a formula. You start with your intro, then you go into objections and pay, kind of all that stuff. And it makes a lot of sense. And that to me, like when I heard that, I was like, you know what, now that that's a process, I can follow that. And so can anybody really, if they really want to try and learn it. Anybody can follow a process as long as you want to do those steps, right? But art is harder to follow because there is no process to it. So I
Yeah.
really love that you said that about sales. Now, tell me a little bit about your first transition to obviously from an IC role to like leadership. What was that? Were you like, I need to be a leader? I know I have the skill set, or did you just kind of like fumble into it and kind of learn as you were into that role?
Well, I think that, and this would go to basically any aspiring leader, was I think that I was the kind of person that worked in an organization, and I would find problems and I would solve them. Um, and so what had happened is I actually found that we were doing a really large product launch, and I was an IC. Okay. And this product launch was like changing the course of the company. And I was so involved in the launch from an SE perspective that I started to make a real impact in the deployment of the launch, like our customer interviews and our ICP identifications, and I
Mhm.
started looking at the process and actually solving sort of the more boring parts about it.
Yeah.
So one of my first tips of advice is like find a boring problem nobody wants to solve and solve that boring problem for everybody else. When you solve a boring problem, everybody's like, "Oh my god, I'm so glad Arvi solved that. I hated taking notes." Right?
Yeah, yeah,
And so I started solving all these boring problems, and sort of and leadership came to me. I didn't I knew that I wanted to manage and help people. I think a lot of people go into people management with the idea that they want to help people grow in their careers and identify their blind spots and all that kind of stuff. Um, but management sort of came my way as I started solving all these problems in these product launches and within our organization.
yeah,
And I do want to say that like the word leader and manager are very different. I think there are plenty of managers that are not
yeah,
leaders. I think leadership is kind of a optional. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of people listening will probably go, you know what, I don't have a great leader. I have a great manager who maybe is really technical. Um, so they're two different paths. You can lead no matter what position you're in.
yeah. I love that. Yeah, I learned in my career that a manager manages processes and SOPs versus a leader manages people. And it's way easier to manage an SOP than it is to lead people and manage people because you can't technically manage people. You literally, like the word says, you have to lead them.
Right.
So yeah, I thank you for for clarifying that as well because I'm totally with you on that. Now, just on that specifically, obviously you've built and led SE teams. What's one lesson you've learned that every aspiring SE leader should know?
Oh, okay, good question. So one thing that you'll learn as a solution engineering leader specifically is that you actually need to lead other departments to lead an SE team as well. Okay.
Hmm.
So if you're leading a solution engineering team, that means you need to manage the way that product communicates with the organization. You need to manage and filter how roadmap gets tied into sales conversations. You need to manage and filter how marketing goes to market using the value props. And so one thing I realized is you have to be very good at cross-functionally managing team members and helping other people get their jobs done. That's probably not as applicable in other management roles at tech companies. If you
Yeah.
manage a very technical organization like a product team, you're probably not worried about how AEs have conversations with prospects. It's really kind of not in your realm. But as an SE leader, all of that stuff affects your role. So you have to learn how to cross-functionally get involved in other teams. One tactical way that I like doing this is I like creating councils. If you're a large enough organization, you can create like moments in time where you intentionally meet with these groups and you use the brain trust and the brilliance of your SE team to help them. So you can create marketing councils, sales councils, product councils, moments in time where they get direct feedback from your team in order to drive success. That also allows your team members to get a little bit more influence too.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking of cross-functionally, I want to ask kind of like a more in-depth question on that. Do you personally think that, and I kind of hear both sides to this. Some companies say, we like to keep them separate, and then some they're like, no, we think that they should train together. Do you think SEs and AEs should train together, or at least have like some sort of daily training or weekly training, or do you think that it's better to have them separately?
I think it depends on what kind of training. The
Mhm.
way I look at the relationship between the AE and the SE is almost like the CT. The SE is almost like the CTO to a deal.
Yeah.
The SE should be the trusted advisor in the room who prescribes the best technical product set to solve the challenge and the pain point the prospect has. The AE is in charge of the revenue,
Yeah.
right? And so if there's training that involves, going to market together, partnership, doing discovery, things of that nature, sure. I always loved sales training as an SE because I wanted to be so trusted by my AEs, and it still goes today. I mean, I work with AEs all the time. Um,
Yep.
I want them to trust me so much that I can get on a flight and I can go manage that customer by myself.
Yeah.
And they're not worried about what Chris is going to say. Is he going to get in the weeds? Is he going to
Yeah.
complicate things? Is he going to create doubt? Um, is he going to be able to manage that environment without me? Right. So I want my seller to have that sort of trust within me. So I want to attend the training that they're getting that
Yeah.
tells them how to do those things.
I love that. And I think this is a perfect way to segment into my next question is, as an SC, like how do you balance like technical expertise and strong communication skills? Do you feel like, and again, obviously this is a little bit product dependent or company dependent, but do you feel like one or the other is harder to learn?
Oh, depends. Very, like you said, I think it's very company dependent.
Yeah.
Um, I would say this. As an SE, you typically will have the curse of knowledge. Okay. And what the curse of knowledge is, if you know so much about a product, when you hear a question, you want to tell them all about everything you know, right? So
Yeah.
you're like, oh, if you want to do this, actually, there's 5 ways to do it in my product. And let me show you the 5 ways. Guess what? That's like definitely the wrong thing to do. Your job is to essentially vet that and find the easiest, fastest way for your customer to be successful, right?
Mhm.
So you have to basically communicate how the problem solves their business problem in a way that's not going to introduce too much challenge to get to that resolution, the value. The way I manage tech and comms is like be you have to know the technology deep enough to solve your customer's problem and make your customer successful. Um, that is like that is the way that I look at your technical expertise.
Yeah.
So if you can go to a business and say, you're in a moment of crisis, you need my tool, I know how to technically make you successful using this tool.
Yeah.
That's enough. Clearly, I want you to be able to communicate that with empathy, that your customer doesn't know how your stuff works.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot.
They need your help understanding it, and they need your help understanding it at a very different level than your internal meetings do.
Right. Love that. With that being said, I know that that's definitely one of the biggest things, like, and like you mentioned, that SCs struggle with is, feature selling versus outcome selling. Is there any trainings or any books or anything that you would recommend where somebody watching this might really, be struggling with this and it would help them overcome that or just train a little bit better?
Great question. So, Chris White's a friend of mine. He wrote a book called The 6 Habits of Selling, or I actually don't know the whole thing. Anyway, name drop. That's a good book that
Yes.
will teach you how to be a partner in sales. His thing is like, guess what? You're in sales. By the way,
Yeah.
that's one example of many options in the market. Most of those options will focus on the SE craft, right? PreSales Collective has enablement. To Win has some enablement. There's people like Rue Dickinson who has an enablement. I could build a whole list for you.
Yeah. Love
But if you zoom out, there's essentially two camps. There's the craft of being a solution engineer, which has a lot of overlap in sales.
it. Hmm.
And then there's your technical expertise, which is very, very niche in your product set and the problem you're solving. If you focus on the craft of technically being able to solve problems, doing discovery, all that, you'll be good.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for sharing all those. I know that honestly, me being in this space is one of the biggest questions I get when I'm talking to talent, especially if they're looking to break into sales engineering. They're always looking for, just resources of certifications. And speaking of, well, do you think certifications in this space are important? Or is it more about your capabilities and your training and obviously your experience?
What I see and what I want to see when I hire SEs is I want to see that they have a deep knowledge of the space that we're in,
Hmm.
and that they understand the landscape in which we're selling in. They understand the competitive landscape. They understand how to find success using this tool, why the product exists in the first place. Okay. Secondly, what I look at is I look to see if they are interested or understand that being in solution engineering is a craft. If I take somebody from engineering who has an engineering background,
Yeah.
and they have no certificates or are not a member of any type of pre-sales focused community work, I kind of look at it and I think, okay, you're a highly technical person who has not really yet found that solution engineering is a craft. So maybe you're going to have to do the soft skills. Soft skills is really hard to train because some people really have a hard time taking their technology background and turning it into sales. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're highly technical and you're like, look, I know I'm good at it. I just want the world to understand I'm good at it. Become a member of PreSales Collective, put it on your LinkedIn. It's totally free. It shows people that you're interested in pre-sales as a craft. It's the best place for it.
Yeah.
Go get some of the books and read them and put them on your resume. Show people that you understand it is sales and sales is a craft. You're going to go so much further with those free and easy things to do. I mean, you reach out to anybody who's done this and they'll give you free advice or access to things.
For sure. For sure. I love that. Yeah. And it's true. When you're coming from a technical background, it's always kind of like your safe space. So going into a sales role or trying to mix the two, you have to really train your mind that, it's not about the technical sale now. It's about the kind of like what we just spoke about, the outcome sale and their pain points. And it's not that the client does care about the product features, but they really more care about how those features are going to help impact their business.
Yeah. What my advice to people in this situation is this. If you're an engineer and you're like, look, I want to get out of the basement. Chris was in the basement. He had no windows. He got out. Look what he's doing now. Is go find a technology you love today that's helping you do your job. That company has SEs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that company has an SE team. Go become friends with those SEs. Find them on LinkedIn, connect with them. Say, I love your tool. I'm actually getting into being an SE too. Build inroads with companies that you love.
Yeah.
You have the highest rate you have the highest potential of becoming an SE at that company because you understand the tech so well and you are a user of that tech. Look at any SE team, you're going to have one person who's like, I was a customer, now I'm an SE. Guess what? It's because it's really, really helpful. So do that first, but then also show them you're not just nerding out on the tool, like you understand sales.
Love that. Now I have a quote unquote weird question for you. What is it with technical people in basements with no lights? Is that like a focus thing? Because I'm the type of person that I need windows, as you can see, I need light in to actually focus. And then I do find that most technical people, they prefer like a super secluded space with, like you said, no windows.
I don't know. In this case, it was a data center, so it made a lot of sense.
That makes sense.
Okay, so you do want a very controlled environment in a data center.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's freezing, it's loud, it's all those things. I think that there's the type of tactical work of closing yourself in and focusing on code and focusing on solving problems. And then there's the type of high level, I want to look at the mountains, put me out in the rivers kind of work. That's selling hopes and dreams.
Yeah. I got
You'll
you.
find me right in the middle of those two things.
Love that. Okay, awesome. So I want to shift a little bit differently. I know we just kind of circled this a little bit, but we mentioned a little bit on hiring. Now, most companies, and this is one of the hardest things about hiring, right? Is like knowing when to balance of, is it too early versus is it too late? So in your opinion, like, what's your take on like proactive hiring versus reactive hiring? Have you found a balance on like, I know exactly now when I need to hire, or is it still kind of a juggling type task?
Yeah. So from the perspective of the hiring manager, and you're looking at your team's capacity, and you're questioning whether you need more resources, I think is the question, right? Today, what people are doing is they're thinking, do I need more headcount, or can I solve this problem with AI or tech?
Yeah.
Can I process my way out of this? Can I use technology to help me gain that extra 10% time for my team so they can get that back?
Yeah.
And then most people are doing that, and to the point where it's much too late, and then they go and hire, and for 6 weeks or whatever the process is, your team's in pain. Okay.
Yeah.
The happy middle ground there is you should keep a bench warm of people that you love to work with, who would drive your business forward. So you do all the other things, but you also have individuals that will help your business grow and succeed, so that you can shortcut that process a little bit. Now that goes directly into, you're in the market. How do you get on that bench? How do you get to the point where that's you being considered? And I think the folks that I'm looking at, if you want to get into like aptitude and what hiring managers are looking for today, it's certainly industry experience. I want people. We just hired somebody. It's a perfect example of what I was looking for. I want somebody who understands the space and the problem very well that we're solving.
Yeah.
I mean, I even came to Reprise because I love the problem we're solving. And I can solve this problem using all kinds of ways. We just happen to have technology that solves it. And we have a team that solves it. But I fell in love with the problem, and that helps me every day, because I can look at all the things that I need to do, and I could always go back to the fact that I understand the problem really well. So I want somebody who understands the problem we're solving for our customers. I also am looking for people who are super hungry. This is like a hard term to nail down.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how do you evaluate hunger?
You know what? You do things like I love meeting people in person, and you can see this in my work. I mean, even at, we do a ton of in-person events. We do a ton of executive dinners. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I'm like, I will stand on my high horse and talk about the value of it. I do things like propose in-person meetings, propose things that take people's effort And I don't do it in like maliciously, because I actually think it's really valuable for all of us.
Yeah.
But in those moments, you'll see the way people act, and you'll understand quite quickly how their aptitude for this role. Maybe they've got 4 or 5 irons in the fire, and you're like the company they would maybe want to work for, but you're
Yeah.
not convinced. The job market's at a point today where like companies don't have to hire people who aren't 100% in, because you can
Yeah.
just go find somebody who is. And so you go through these moments and you understand. And if you're in the interview cycle today, these moments include things like prep calls before your interviews. How much research did they do on you? Do they know who you are when they join the interview? I've had people come in and interview, and you can tell they basically jumped on the call. They don't know anything about you.
Yeah.
I've had others say, I'm unique because I've done a lot of like public stuff. I've had people jump in and say, I've listened to 3 of your podcasts, this one, and this one, and I like these things you had to say about this. I had a question about that. And you're like, okay, this person has done their research. Those bits and pieces, if you have a talent pool of 150 applicants, make a huge difference to the person that you're talking to.
Yeah. I'm going to play devil's advocate here really quick and say, for the candidates or the talent that they're like, hey, I've been applying to over 100 jobs. If I had to do that for every single interview I've taken, that's just like a full-on job on itself. Like, what would you say to that? Or is there like a balance to, like applying, or, I'm a huge fan, and I always tell anybody that I'm talking to, especially if they're looking for a job, that they shouldn't just kind of spray and pray apply. They should have that sniper approach. Just because you apply to 100 jobs does not mean that you're taking the time to do that. I would rather you apply to 5 to 10 jobs and, kind of like you said, do that due diligence and reach out to 3 or 4 people in that company, if you really want to increase your chances of getting that role. But there's still people that say, hey, but I'm also applying to 100 plus. How do I even find the time to do due diligence on everybody and try to listen to all these podcasts? So just playing a devil's advocate here, what would you say to that?
I compare it to sales. You can be highly qualified. You can highly qualify your prospects, or you can go try to sell to everyone.
Yeah. Totally.
And if you're doing email marketing, your click rate is sub 1%. But if you're doing personalized gifts and events that include people, your click rate's going to be 70%. So I think I actually think the old school version of getting a job is totally flipped on its head. And I saw this at PreSales Collective, because part of what we ran was we did a bunch of job placements in one of the programs.
Mm-hmm.
Our most successful students were those who actually did the hiring process backwards. They would first find the companies where they would make an actual impact. Like, find that tech that you know very well. If you're an engineer, find the thing you love, right? And then they connect and network. After connecting and networking with that organization, they ask for the referral, then they apply.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's getting hired any other way. And because so many hiring managers already have that bench because they need it.
Yeah.
That is how they're building that bench, is they're getting those in-mails. They're actually connecting with people in person at events, and they're going, you know what, I really liked Arvi. I met her at the happy hour in New York, and she's somebody who would be great for our company. That is that's the strategic level of going after work today.
Yeah. I love that. I 100% agree with it. And I have nothing else to add, because I preach the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
So totally love that. I know we've circled around this as well a little bit, but what would you say, maybe 3 or 4 points of what would separate like a good sales engineer versus like an A-player sales engineer?
Interesting. So yeah, there's definitely a difference between great and good. I would say, to the first point on hunger within an organization, what people want right now, it's what you have to bring, is a whatever it takes kind of attitude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've worked with and managed and Been around a lot of SEs who are like, they love to say no, they love their process, they do their demo, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Those can be highly successful people, often more technical, but they're not going to grow their career the way that other people who are willing to jump on fires and put out fires that maybe even aren't in their realm
Yeah.
are comfortable doing. So you got to do whatever it takes. If marketing comes to you and says, "We would love it if you wrote a blog," you go, "Sure, here's my ideas.
Yeah.
Go and make them good," right? It like that's something that really separates an SE on a team. Somebody who is a strategic advisor to your AEs. One of the golden rules, honestly, you can go to any SE team. It'd be a fun challenge if anybody wants to send me calendars. Now, this is obviously wouldn't work, but if I look at any SE teams calendars, you could I will tell you who is the more trusted and strategic SE.
Yeah.
Your calendar is booked.
Yeah.
There's I know there's so many tools out there, and I know we're all automating go to market. AI and GTM is a huge category. I get it.
Yeah.
But your human to human relationship between AEs and SEs, your more strategic SEs are going to be booked more often. It's likely because they do things like whatever it takes approach. They do things like they come to meetings and they don't go in the rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Focus on making your customer successful and be that filter for technology to value. Even if you're 10% better at it or you're 10% focused at it, it's going to make you elevate in your team.
I love that. Actually, I'm going to go off script here a little bit because we mentioned it a couple times. AI in today's world. Obviously, I'm sure you've seen it online where everybody's like, "Oh, AI is going to come for your job." How do you think that's going to play out, at least in the next few years? What is your, of course, prediction? We don't know for sure what's going to happen, but in terms of applying AI to you as a role, obviously on the leadership side, but also on the sales and general, like as an IC role, how do you think that's going to affect those roles?
Well, I think that it makes the AE more like an SE. So the account executive, to remove terms. So if you're account executive, your buyer is expecting you to show up to the call with a highly personalized version of your product with them in it, with their story in it that solves their problem.
Yeah.
And so you can use technology like AI to make your environments and your story and your ecosystem really hyper relevant to your prospect right away. And so the SE role is changing because back even, let me think of it, seven years ago, we had I had my demo environment behind me on servers, and we had stories that we told on every demo, right?
Yeah.
And so some of those stories included Scooby-Doo characters and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Done. That is gone. You cannot do that anymore. Some people are still doing it. The Office characters, they don't work anymore. SEs who are using tools and go-to-market tools and demo tools like Reprise, we have AI where you drop relevant data into an environment and it populates it. If you go and tell a story with your environment like that, you're likely going to have a better conversion rate. So is it taking the SE job? Today, what it's doing is SEs that leverage tools like that are having higher conversion rates and they're having higher qualified deals. So companies who are basically on it today, converting faster, higher qualified, they're getting things through the pipe faster. In the future, the SE is going to come a little bit more into the AE world, because if I can automate those parts of my process, and I can take all the work out of the building of the demo environments and I can take that stuff out, I want my SEs on site building relationships. Your technology is still complicated. You're still solving problems. I mean, in the enterprise space, these are big problems to solve. Use the genius of your SE team to go and enable others and make your customer successful. So it kind of breaks open the door. Like there's retention, there's expansion, there's pre-sales, there's new business. all these categories kind of blur when you think of you have a team who's strategically good. How do you affect those numbers for there's a whole conversation on board level metrics. How do you get your SE team tied to board level metrics to move the business forward? And there's a lot of room there. There's a lot of work.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what you mentioned earlier of, what separates a good sales engineer versus like a great one is going to become more and more into play with AI being involved in your role. Because those that refuse to, kind of go above a little bit and beyond are just going to be the first outliers. And it's going to be more of like, hey, you either, try to adapt and do more, or it's just not going to be, at least in my own prediction, I think those would be the first people that would not have a job, and they would either be forced to become great or, kind of be on the sidelines.
Today, AI is way too new to have it as a requirement in a job.
They're great.
You don't see a lot of, you see some of them, Anthropic, they've got some really great SE roles out there. I know people in some of these awesome roles, and you don't have somebody who's got 3 years of native AI experience applying.
Yeah.
That will come. And as an SE, you're going to find yourself in the market in 5 years where you're competing with roles who require 2+ years of AI experience. And you're going to be like, I don't have that. So what I've done myself, look, I spend a lot of time on the business aspect of my role, right? And I think business acumen, RevOps, understanding that is really good for an SE. But what I've done is on the side, I'm in an AI course. So I'm taking a MBA certificate that has a lot of AI for business infused in it, because I want to learn it too. It's fun to be a student again. Honestly, it's like really cool. But I do feel that AI is it's an ever changing landscape, and I think that I think there's some easy ways to get on top of it. Like I don't think it's as hard. It seems really daunting. Just Google it, take a course, use AI to find the best AI course and take one.
I was just going to say that you can use AI to learn AI. Awesome. What would you say for anybody watching this that either wants to get into being an SE or get into the space, of course, in today's world with all these changing things happening like AI, et cetera, what would you tell them to stand out or do better if they're, again, transitioning into being into this role?
Yeah, breaking into SE world, you may need to break into post-sales role first. You may need to break into an implementation role, a customer success role. Break into that role with a company that you understand the problem they solve very well, some tech that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Stand out by joining events like this. Don't just watch a LinkedIn Live like this, or go to a pre-sales collective event or all the others and just go. Take a screenshot and put it on your LinkedIn. Build your personal brand. Today, I invested in myself, however you want to say it. I wouldn't say those exact words, but love the things Arvi had to say about this, and this. I couldn't agree more, right? It doesn't take much. Start building your brand so that people see you as somebody who is consistently learning and open and hungry for information. Becoming an SE is a mountain. It's like when you join a company, you have a mountain to climb. You have to learn all their sales processes. You have to learn all their product. You have to learn all the market. So if you take those things down a notch, if you can understand those things a little bit before you join, then that's going to make it easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's super important, everything that you said. I will ask really quick though. It's not as common that people say, start with post sales. Why would you recommend that? What specifically about it is it?
Well, I think maybe it's because I've done it that way. I got into being an SE as an implementation manager. I just think that the barrier to entry for SE at the moment is
really high.
Is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have experience, like implementation and those kinds of things, they allow you to, you're not basically doing the discovery and the value side of it. but it does allow you to get experience on what it's like to implement technology in somebody else's environment and work with customers while you're doing it. I think that it gives you a sense of what the SE job is like. And within that company, SE teams often farm talent from those teams.
Absolutely. I will, again, 100% agree with that, because I do work with a lot of hiring managers where one of their first requirements is having worked in post sales, customer success management or technical account manager. So that's why I wanted to dive deeper into that, because I do get that a lot lately. And I mean, it's true. Like, you get that kind of best of both worlds. Like, before you were in the very technical, and now you have that customer facing experience. So it makes it a way easier transition for the hiring manager to say, yeah, he's done both. I'm willing to train that person to take them to the next level.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that. Cool. I just want to double check real quick to make sure we don't have any questions right now. Otherwise, I
Good
would
comments.
here we go. Let me check. All right, let's see. We have some questions here or comment. I think we're just getting really good feedback, Chris.
Yeah.
So it's cool. No questions, but a lot of good feedback. So it's pretty awesome. Any last minute thing? You don't have to, but if there's anything else you might want to add right now, obviously, please share anything that could help anybody, or just like the last minute advice.
Well, what I would say is this: this is something I'm super passionate about. You're already doing the work. There's just 1%, 2%, 10% more effort makes all the difference. So if you're already doing the work and you're applying at a lot of organizations, my advice is to maybe take that list of 50 and bring it down to 25 and go 5% deeper on each one of those. If you're already in solution engineering and you're like, man, I really want to lead a team, solve a boring problem that everybody hates, find the tech to do it, whatever it takes. Some of the stuff's not that expensive, but be the person who finds the solution to those problems. Another piece is it's just, I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome and the feeling of, man, I just, who am I? I don't have a resume. Like who am I to share my knowledge? Who am I to go in and to get into leadership? Who am I to break into solution engineering? I'm right there with you. I still feel that too. I do a lot of these things. I still feel some days like, wow, I've got so much to learn.
Yeah.
My humble opinion is to just start today with small things, record the work you're doing for yourself. Don't be afraid to talk about the work you're doing, and share it, and it's going to take a little bit of that hard personal work. But put yourself out there and connect with folks, meet people in real life. And that's going to change everything. If you're feeling stuck, if you feel like you want to break into the space, if you feel like you've been in the space for a decade, it doesn't matter. Find events near you, travel somewhere. I take a train to New York City. It's about a couple hours. Mm-hmm. It's worth it every time.
Yeah, I love that. I think that what you mentioned on imposter syndrome, at the end of the day, I think that comes down to your self-confidence. And the only way to solve that is through repetition and showing up, doing it, making a mistake, failing per se at it, doing it again. So I really love that you shared that.
Yeah.
This was so good. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining and sharing your insight. Tons of gold in here for anybody in pre-sales or even just building SE teams. For those of you watching live or maybe catching the replay later, please feel free to connect with Chris. Follow him on LinkedIn. He shares so much value on there as well. And not to mention, he also always shares like what your next event is going to be at. So having a chance to go to events, meet live in person, whether with Chris or anybody else in the industry, and kind of start building those relationships, right? Like we were just talking about. In the world of AI, I think relationships are just going to keep becoming more and more important and harder to get to. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Arvi. I really appreciate it.